Hi, everyone, and thank you for coming to this Dreamforce talk on GovSlack, the digital HQ for government work. Before we dive in, our lawyers would like to remind you that this presentation will contain forward-looking statements. We are here to talk about the future, what we're building, and what we're going to do. But if you do decide to purchase, you should base your purchasing decisions just on what is available today. Now, of course, I only want to talk about what we are doing because that's the fun stuff. I'm T.R. Jordan. I'm a product manager here at Slack, and I work exclusively with our PubSec customers around GovSlack. Before we dive into exactly what that means, I want to take a step back. We are, to put it politely, in uncertain economic times. We've seen this across the entire industry. We've seen supply chain disruptions. We've seen labor shortages. We've seen inflation hit everyone. But paradoxically, customer expectations have been going up because of this. When you think about it, it really makes sense. They're facing the same headwinds that we're facing in all of our teams and businesses, and they're demanding more of their partners. And that puts everyone into a tough position. It requires everyone to meet those customer needs by increasing productivity, even when your mission is critical and you're facing budget cuts or you're facing labor shortages. That reality doesn't go away. But it's not all doom and gloom. There is an approach that we've seen over the last couple of years that has really met this challenge. And that's the approach of a digital HQ. What is a digital HQ? This is the place where all of your teams are already focused. It's where they start and they end their day, and that's Slack. It's a place where you can bring your teams together with their partners. You can bring in your existing Salesforce Customer 360 integrations, and you can attach that to the ecosystem of broader apps so you can get your work done in the most effective way possible. Doing this is hard, but doing this is even harder in the public sector, because if you're going to build your own, you need to make sure that you're not only meeting the challenges of productivity and collaboration, but in public sector, we all deal with information that is sensitive. We need to stay compliant, and those regulatory regimes exist for a reason. And honestly, this is the reason that I'm here today. I get out of bed every morning because I love talking to our public sector customers about the challenges they face. And it is hard. And the consistent message I hear is that we're being asked to do more with less. And we still have to do that in the environment where compliance is top of mind, and our teams are working in an increasingly complex world. But if we do this right, the impact is huge. We see that teams save time with automation. We see that teams self-report as more productive. And if we look across the entirety of Salesforce's book of business, the teams doing this see positive return on investment incredibly quickly. Virtually all of our teams say that they see positive ROI within 10 months. But let's talk a little bit about what that means specifically in the public sector. I want to share a couple of customer stories about exactly what we've seen over the last few years and how some of the most successful teams have been incredibly successful with a digital HQ. Lockheed Martin is one of my favorite customers. They've been a Slack customer since 2016 or so, but only in small ways initially, a few pockets here and there. And then along came COVID. And all of a sudden, all of their norms around physical spaces and working together were unavailable to them. And they made a decision, a bold decision, to go all in on Slack in one weekend. And they saw benefits immediately. They not only saw that teams could work together effectively, sharing status updates and artifacts within their channels, but they also saw benefits across their entire organization. Lockheed Martin is 114,000 employees, and their executives found that they could communicate with the entire employee base, sharing what was happening with COVID, what the company was doing in response to it, and how they were keeping their business moving, even as things were incredibly ambiguous. But that was 2 years ago. What's happened since? The interesting thing is that Lockheed discovered new ways of working by moving their headquarters into the digital space. They found that they could not only work more effectively internally, but they could work with their partners. The work they do is so collaborative and requires so many different organizations to get done that they took the same approach and they brought their partners into Slack using Slack Connect. Today, they have 30 different organizations that they work with across dozens of Slack Connect channels. And they can replicate this effect no matter whether you're a full-time employee, a contractor, a partner, or anybody else they work with. And of course, at that scale, there's bound to be bureaucracy, there's inefficiencies. So teams leaned into how to use the digital HQ to most effectively do their work. They set up intake forms, intake workflows that would allow other teams to give them all the information they need to reduce back and forth. So you would have a team working within IT or a team working on a particular project, and all the information could be shared immediately because it was structured. Today, they have more than 1,400 individual workflows, and that's an incredible amount of time saved across the entire organization. And they're working with us to bring more information into Slack by upping the compliance requirements or meeting the compliance requirements in a new space with GovSlack. On the other end of the spectrum is Army Software Factory, a small but mighty organization that works directly within the DoD to up-level the Army, building software for them and spreading software expertise. They onboard new cohorts of soldiers every 6 months, but before they could do anything, they need to make sure that their digital HQ is compliant. And that's why they turned to Slack, is to make sure that they could work in a space that they knew was secure. But again, they found those same benefits. It's not just a place to talk about, to talk freely. It's also a place where you can automate away all of the routine tasks. Even when you're a very small group of people, there's still routine tasks and there's ways of working that need to be defined because you don't have that larger structure. And Army Software Factory found success here, automating away onboarding new employees or working with the soldiers that they were onboarding in those cohorts. And that they ended up saving the admin team upwards of 40 hours a week. And not only, it wasn't just about admin tickets, it also built a strong culture. They set up channels for their individual teams and projects, but they also set up horizontal cross-functional channels. So all people of a certain function, software engineers, IT managers, program managers, could have a shared space and share their expertise and share their culture, strengthening the entire unit, making sure that everyone was staying productive. And they were so successful with this, they brought their partners in. They use Slack Connect to work with their Army counterparts and amplify their impact in an incredible way. They're also doubling down on GovSlack. They are working with us on our authorizations for FedRAMP High in order to enable more information within Slack so they can continue to double down on this approach. This is why we built GovSlack. GovSlack is about building a secure, flexible collaboration space for anyone who works with the US federal government, the agencies and the partners that they have. It's fundamentally designed with compliance and security top of mind, but the user experience is that Slack digital HQ that we've spent the last 8 years iterating on. It's foundationally around channels and the idea of bringing the people you need in with Slack Connect, the customer 360 integrations in from Salesforce and a broad app directory ecosystem in order to bring all the information into one place. Specifically, on the compliance side, GovSlack is a totally new build of Slack. We partnered with AWS and we built it on AWS GovCloud. It took a shocking amount of time to build this up, but it allows us to meet compliance requirements like ITAR, which require that not only do we operate GovSlack with US persons, but our infrastructure is also operated with US persons. It's designed for FedRAMP High and IL4, which we're currently in the process of getting our authorizations, and we use FIPS 142 validated cryptography throughout it. Let's take a different approach here. That's probably enough slides. Let me show you exactly what this looks like when we bring it into the real world. And I want to give you a quick demo of GovSlack. So here is an organization, I'll call it Acme NGO. This is based on an effort that happened when the US withdrew from Afghanistan. Of course, we all wanted that to go well, but the situation on the ground was chaos. The good news is there were volunteers and groups there to help tame that chaos. And one of those groups was an operation called Digital Dunkirk. They rallied more than 1,000 volunteers to help more than 1,500 US citizens and 200 Afghans out of the country when they needed it most. This is what we would imagine that looking like in GovSlack. You can see that on the left-hand side here, we have channels set up for each of the cities that this organization works in. These channels are actually shared with the Army. So you can see Steve here from the Army, and he's directly relaying information, sensitive information about US soldiers and where they are, where tickets for the Michelsons. And we're working directly with them in order to get that information and share the artifacts necessary to get folks out of the country. Of course, communication is great, and this kind of organized approach can provide such an increase in transparency over email. But the real power of Slack is when you bring in other information. So GovSlack's app directory is a dedicated app directory only for apps that can label their compliance. You can see a few of the apps that we've installed here, so Box and some automations. What we've done is actually Acme has brought in flight information, gate information about what is happening on the ground. And we paired this with a volunteer team who can actually update and say, this gate will be open for 15 minutes. This flight's actually delayed, making sure that the channel continues to pulse in real time so everyone can see exactly what's happening and get the latest information and know where to best help. And then finally, going back to Slack Connect, it's critical to bring the right people in here. We saw how we brought the Army into channels. Being able to work within GovSlack with all of our partners is critical. And GovSlack only works with other Gov customers to maintain that baseline of trust and ensure that everyone is handling their sensitive information appropriately. You can see here, we've got conversations set up with the Army, departments we work with, and you can even start direct messages with anyone on the GovSlack Slack Connect network. So that's GovSlack, and I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. If you do manage to make it to the real Dreamforce, I hope to see you there, or I hope I did meet you there. You can check us out if you want to learn more about GovSlack at slack.com/solution/GovSlack. Or if you want to learn more, reach out on the web or to an account executive to learn a little bit more. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later.